midnight screams.
It's been 15 years since I saw the sky for the first time in a decade, and I still have trouble sleeping without a nightlight. Not because I'm afraid of the dark. I lived in the dark for a long time. But because when the lights are out, my sense of scale disappears. I can't tell if the walls are 10 feet away or 10 inches. I can't tell if the door is locked. My name is June. I am 43 years old. I work a data entry job from home. I order my groceries online. I don't have friends, and my family is all dead. If you were to Google my name, which I won't give you, you wouldn't find anything. When I was found in 2010, I begged the police and the lawyers to keep my name out of the papers. I was the girl in the cellar, a Jane Doe victim in a mid-sized town that wanted to forget a monster lived among them. They respected my privacy, mostly because my father, the man who put me there, was a respected deacon in our community. The scandal was bad enough without my face plastered on the news. But keeping it inside has rotted me. It's a different kind of captivity. So I'm going to tell you what happened. I need to put this somewhere where people will believe me. The year was 2000. We survived the Y2K panic. The world didn't end, but mine was about to. I was 18, fresh out of high school and preparing for college in the fall. I was also in love. Her name was Maya. In the year 2000, in my town, girls didn't kiss girls, not without consequences. My father was a hard man, silent, stoic, the kind of man who believed obedience was the highest form of love. He caught us on a Tuesday. Maya had walked me home, and we were standing by the side of the garage, hidden by the rhododendrons. We kissed. It wasn't anything tawdry. It was sweet, clumsy, and terrified. The back door opened. My father didn't yell. That was the scariest thing about him. He never yelled. He just stared. He looked at Maya, then at me, with eyes like flat, grey stones. He told Maya to go home. Then he told me to go to my room. He didn't speak to me for 3 days. I thought he was just icing me out. I thought the punishment was the silence. I was wrong. On Friday afternoon, he knocked on my bedroom door. "June," he said. His voice was calm. "I need help moving the chest freezer in the basement shelter." My father was a paranoid man. He had spent the late 90s building a storm shelter behind a false wall in the basement. It was his project for when the computers crashed and society collapsed. I followed him down the wooden stairs, past the furnace, to the shelving unit that swung outward on heavy hinges. "It's heavy," he said, gesturing inside. "Just get on the other side and push." I walked in. The room was concrete, cold, smelling of dry dust and canned vegetables. I turned to grab the corner of the freezer. I heard the heavy thud of the steel door, followed by the metallic clack, clack, clack of the 3 deadbolts engaging. "Dad?" I called out. "Dad, stop joking." The lights flickered once, then buzzed steady. I ran to the door. I pounded on it. I screamed until my throat tasted like blood. I kicked until my toes were bruised violet. He didn't answer. He didn't answer that day, or the next. That room became my entire universe for 3,650 days. The first few months were a blur of hysteria and denial. I kept thinking it was a test. Repent I thought. If I repent, he'll let me out. I screamed apologies at the ceiling. I promised I would never touch a girl again. I promised I'd go to church every day. The room was soundproofed. He'd built it well. The layout was stark. Initially, it was about 12 feet by 12 feet. There was a cot with a thin mattress, a bucket for waste, later replaced, which I'll get to, a sink with cold running water, and crates of non-perishable food intended for the apocalypse. My father would visit, but not to talk. A slot in the bottom of the door, something he must have installed specially, would slide open. A tray would slide in, usually a sandwich or leftovers from a dinner I could smell cooking 2 floors above. Then the tray would slide back out. I tried to catch his fingers once. I shoved my hand through the slot, clawing for him. He didn't recoil. He just calmly took a heavy wooden dowel and shoved it against my hand until I pulled back in pain. He never spoke. It was as if speaking to me would acknowledge that he was doing something monstrous. If he stayed silent, he was just a force of nature, a jailer ordained by God. The boredom was not immediate. Fear occupied me for the first year, but around the second year, the geography of the room changed. This is the part that haunts me the most, the physical alteration of my reality. I had been planning. I had been scratching at the grout of the concrete blocks behind the supply crates with a spoon handle I'd stolen from a tray. It was pathetic, really. I'd made maybe a 1/4 inch of progress. Then came the needles. One morning, my food tray had a glass of milk. It tasted sweet, almost chalky. I was so thirsty I didn't care. 20 minutes later, the room started to spin. My limbs felt like lead. I crawled to the cot, darkness swallowing me. When I woke up, I don't know how much time had passed. My head felt like it had been split open with an axe. My mouth was dry as sand. I sat up and froze. The room was different. The wall I had been scratching at was gone. The room had extended back another 10 feet. In the new space, he had installed a small, cramped bathroom module. A toilet and a tiny stall shower plumbed into the house's main line. But that wasn't the worst part. In the corners of the ceiling, tiny black domes blinked red. Cameras. And the door. The door was no longer just a steel-reinforced fire door. He had welded a secondary bar across the front, controlled electronically. I could hear the maglock hum. I threw up. He had drugged me. He had come in here, carried my unconscious body around, worked around me, possibly for days, knocked down a wall, did plumbing work, and sealed me back up. It was the ultimate violation. It proved that I was nothing more than a piece of furniture to him. He wasn't afraid of me escaping. He was just storing me. That was when I stopped trying to dig out. If he could drug me, if he could watch me 24/7, there was no blind spot. Around year 3, a television appeared. I woke up from another drugged slumber. He did this periodically to do maintenance or clean, to find a small 20-inch box TV on a stand bolted to the floor. It was hooked up to a basic cable line and a DVD player. This was my window. This was how I watched my 20s pass me by. I watched the Twin Towers fall in September of 2001 before I even had the TV, hearing the muffled sounds of the news from the upstairs floorboards, confused and terrified. But with the TV, I saw the aftermath. I saw the invasion of Iraq. I saw the world shifting, becoming harder, angrier. I watched technology explode. Flip phones turned into Blackberries, then into iPhones. I watched pop culture leave me behind. I developed a routine. I had to, or I would have smashed my head against the cinder blocks. Wake up, shower, 3 minutes of hot water, timed. Eat the granola or toast provided through the slot. Exercise, calisthenics, pacing. Then, the movies. My father would slide DVDs through the slot. He never asked what I wanted. He just gave me things from his own collection or things he found in the bargain bin. Westerns, old monochromatic classics, Casablanca, The Searchers. Then, oddly, cheap romantic comedies. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I watched them until the discs skipped. I memorized every line. I learned to mimic the accents. I held conversations with imaginary versions of Matthew McConaughey or Judy Garland. It wasn't about entertainment. It was about hearing human voices that weren't screaming. By year 5, I had acclimated. It is a sickening thing to admit, but the human mind is adaptable. The room was my world. The world outside was the fiction on the screen. I stopped hating my father around year 6. Hate takes too much energy. It burns calories you need to survive. I started to view him as a weather pattern. He was the provider. When the slot opened, it rained food. When the lights went out, it was night. I projected emotions onto his silence. Maybe he's sorry, I'd think, chewing on a stale bagel. Maybe he's afraid to let me out because he knows he'd go to prison. He's trapped too. I was delusional, of course. He wasn't trapped. He was living upstairs, probably sitting in his recliner, watching the same football games I watched, drinking beer, sleeping in a bed with sheets that smelled like fresh air. The boredom was the true torture. People think of torture as physical pain, whips and chains, but absolute, unyielding boredom is worse. It eats your memories. I started forgetting what fresh grass smelled like. I forgot the specific shade of Maya's eyes. I forgot how cold wind felt on a wet cheek. My memories of the outside world became pixelated, replaced by the scenes from the movies. I started talking to the cameras. "Good morning," I'd say to the lens in the corner. "Did you sleep well?" I tossed and turned. The mattress is lumpy. I knew he was watching. Sometimes, if I asked for something specific, like Advil for a headache or feminine hygiene products, they would appear in the slot a few hours later. He was listening. That was our intimacy. My needs, his provision. No words. By 2008, the recession hit. I watched families losing their homes on the news. I looked around my concrete box, rent-free, fed daily, and felt a grotesque spike of gratitude. At least I'm safe, I told myself. The world out there is scary. Here, nothing changes. That was Stockholm Syndrome, full-blown and malignant. In late 2009, I noticed a change, not in the room, but in the routine. The food trays started coming later. The quality of the food dropped. Sometimes it was just a can of soup and a spoon, unheated. Through the slot, I caught a glimpse of his hand one day. It was shaking. The skin was liver-spotted and paper-thin. He was getting old. Panic set in. Not hope. Panic. If he dies, I realized, I die. Nobody knew about the room. He built it himself. The door was disguised behind a shelving unit filled with paint cans and old tools. If he had a heart attack in the kitchen, he would rot upstairs, and I would starve to death downstairs. 10 feet of earth and concrete between me and salvation. I started hoarding food. I saved crackers, wrappers, half bottles of water. I hid them under the loose corner of the mattress. My escape didn't come from a grand plan. It didn't come from me overpowering him. It came, as everything in my life did, with silence. It was a Tuesday in August 2010. Lunch didn't come. I waited. I paced. I talked to the camera. "I'm hungry," I said. "Please." Nothing. Dinner time passed. The news came on at 6 p.m. I watched it, stomach growling. The next morning, no breakfast. I screamed. I hadn't screamed in 5 years. "Dad! Dad, please!" My voice cracked. It was weak from disuse. I drank water from the tap to soothe my throat and screamed again. By the third day, the terror was a physical weight. The air in the room was getting stale. The ventilation system seemed to be running on low power or had shut off. I banged the metal heavy chair against the door for hours until my hands blistered. "He's dead," I thought. "He's dead and I am in my tomb." I lay on the floor, watching the crack of light under the door. I hallucinated. I thought I saw Maya standing by the bathroom, smiling at me. Then, around the 4th day, I had lost exact count. I heard a sound. It wasn't the slot opening. It was a heavy boom from upstairs, like a door being kicked in. Then voices, heavy boots, a dog barking. I scrambled to the door. I didn't have the strength to bang the chair anymore. I pressed my face to the cold steel. "I'm here!" I shrieked. "Down here! Basement! Shelves!" I didn't know if they could hear me. Soundproofing works both ways. I heard the thudding of boots on the stairs. I heard men talking. "Clear down here," a deep voice said. "Looks like just storage." "No!" I screamed. "I'm behind the shelves. Push the shelves." I picked up the heavy chair with the last of my adrenaline and smashed it against the door. Clang! Silence outside. "Did you hear that?" the voice said. Clang! It came from the wall. I heard the scraping of the shelving unit being dragged across the concrete. Then a voice, muffled but close. "Hello? Is someone back there?" "Help me," I sobbed. "My name is June. Please." "Jesus Christ," the voice whispered. Then came the tools, the screech of a circular saw biting into metal, the sparks flying. It took them an hour to cut through the heavy locks and the steel bar my father had welded. When the door finally swung open, the light from their flashlights was blinding. It felt like fire in my eyes. I covered my face, curling into a ball on the floor. A police officer, a woman, touched my shoulder. "It's okay," she said. Her voice was trembling. "You're okay now." I learned the truth a few days later, from a hospital bed, hooked up to IVs and wearing sunglasses because the room lights hurt too much. My father had suffered a massive stroke in the kitchen. He had dropped dead instantly. He lay there for 3 days before a neighbour, noticing his mail piling up and the lawn unmowed — he was meticulous about the lawn — called for a wellness check. They found him. They cleared the house. They were about to leave when I banged the chair. 10 years. The adjustment was... It wasn't like in the movies. There was no joyous montage. I was 30 pounds underweight. I had a vitamin D deficiency that made my bones ache. My social skills were non-existent. I was terrified of open doors. I couldn't be in a room with a window for 6 months because the concept of outside terrified me. The infinite sky felt like it was going to crush me. And the technology, God, the technology. Everything was touchscreens and social media. I felt like a caveman thawing out of ice. I sold the house. I couldn't step foot in it again. I had it sold by a lawyer, instructing them to destroy the contents of the basement before showing it. The money from the house and his life insurance allows me to live quietly. It's blood money, but I feel I earned it. I'm writing this now because I recently found a box of old DVDs in a thrift store. I saw a copy of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I stood there in the aisle, clutching the plastic case, and I started weeping. A nice lady asked if I was okay. I couldn't explain to her that this stupid movie was my only friend for 3 years. I barely touched the surface of what happened in that room. The games I played to stay sane, the specific cruelties of the renovations, the dreams I had. It's late now. The nightlight is flickering and it's making me anxious. I need to go check the locks on my apartment door again. It'll be the 10th time tonight. If you have questions, ask. There is so much I haven't said, and talking to a therapist feels too clinical. I'd rather talk to you in the dark. I think I hear a noise outside. It's probably just the wind, but I'm going to check the locks, just in case. Sometimes people really do die for no reason. And I don't mean a senseless killing or a tragic accident. I mean that sometimes the human body shuts down for reasons beyond our current medical knowledge. We know that it starts either in the heart or the autonomic nervous system. But beyond that, we in the medical field are stumped. I'm an emergency physician working in a major city, and I'd like to break the silence on this issue. But that would be career suicide. So I'll do it anonymously here. It happens more than you might think. A young, healthy woman goes to sleep and just doesn't wake up the next day. A middle-aged man collapses on the sidewalk, and we always come up with an excuse of how it happened. The woman's doctor will dig into her medical history and find out she admitted to doing cocaine at a party in college. Or the middle-aged man's grandfather died of a heart attack, so he probably had a congenital defect that led to sudden cardiac death. The problem is, a heart attack and sudden cardiac death are two different things. And an overweight 80-year-old smoker having a heart attack doesn't explain why his 45-year-old half-marathon running grandson's heart simply stopped beating one day on his way to the corner store. It's so much easier to explain away the problem if they have a current medical condition. Oh, he has diabetes, that's why his heart stopped. Never mind that his diabetes was well managed and he followed his medication regimen religiously. Oh, she had the flu, which we often forget kills people every year. Yeah, it does, but not normally 17-year-old varsity volleyball players with no underlying health problems. Sometimes the sudden death occurs and causes an accident, which makes covering up the real cause easier. Heck, we don't even need to cover it up, since half the time we don't know about it. I remember learning about the condition back in med school during my pathology rotation. I was naturally pretty good at this subfield and considered specializing in it for a time before going the emergency medicine route. The attending took a liking to me and asked me to take a look at something. I'd like to say I was in the morgue doing extra credit because I was such a badass student. But honestly, if memory serves, I was practicing rectal exams on my cadaver because I hated them, and I didn't want to freak out in front of class again. I found the pathologist in the adjacent room, looking at the nude corpse of a 38-year-old woman with a Y incision across her torso. She had bruises and lacerations across her face from an airbag. No damage to her hands or wrists though, which sometimes happens when airbags deploy, but isn't consistent enough to be suspicious alone. She also had a bruise stretching from left shoulder across her chest, a common injury caused by seatbelts, and I was told the autopsy revealed her spleen had been contused. Again, something consistent with seatbelt-related injuries. The only problem was, that was the only internal damage the doctor could find. Her lungs, heart, and brain showed no significant pathology. She hadn't bled out internally. Analysis of her blood showed elevated levels of troponin, a marker often used to diagnose heart attacks, but no infarcts were found in her heart. Witnesses said that she went limp before her car swerved off the road. Perhaps she fainted, you might think. Just because she lost consciousness before crashing doesn't mean thousands of people are dropping dead every year from an unknown cause. After all, her autopsy also revealed she had a blood alcohol concentration of 0.03%. So that probably contributed to her loss of consciousness, right? Now you're thinking like a doctor. Why consider the facts when you can neatly file this away with the many alcohol-related accidents that occur every year? A BAC of 0.03%. What a joke. That's well under the legal limit, as I'm sure you know. And with no other drugs or even prescribed medications in her system, the likelihood that the amount of alcohol found in a small beer knocked this woman out is absurd to me. She had a history of enjoying a few drinks each week, so it's not like this was her first time. But her friends and family said she had been under a lot of stress lately and wasn't sleeping well. So the hospital was able to latch onto that as an explanation. A little bit of beer plus a whole lot of stress and poor sleep. That can make someone lose consciousness at the wheel, right? If that were the case, everyone I went to med school with would be dead 100 times over. Heck, not just med students. The whole damn country's experiencing an epidemic of stress and poor sleep. But it's more comforting to believe this explanation than the alternative. Let's ignore, of course, the fact her body didn't have enough damage to account for her death. I noticed the Frankenstein cut across the woman's scalp that meant the pathologist had examined her brain, and I asked if there was any damage to it. He said there wasn't, and asked me what I thought he should do. I told him to re-examine the brain for any neurological reasons the woman might have suddenly fainted. He said he wouldn't. When I asked why, he replied, "Because if I don't find anything, it draws attention to the fact that she died of nothing. Leave just enough ambiguity, and the family can make peace with it." Those words stuck with me. You've heard about this unnamed, unspoken condition before, too. When it happens to celebrities, it makes the news. Thankfully, the media love dragging famous people's names through the mud, so when they die of nothing, you hear about every unhealthy habit they ever had and every drug they ever took. The cause of death is always some horrible celebrity behavior that us normal people don't engage in, so we don't have to worry. And it cracks me up when the media outlets all pick different explanations to run with. Remember that TV star we all watched growing up who died a few years back? He had engaged in some rigorous physical activity beforehand, so that must have contributed to his heart failure. Except, people with weak hearts usually don't do rigorous activities. They follow a pretty clear and predictable decline in physical ability before dying. And people who get heart attacks usually get them during the activity, not after. Oh, it can happen, but generally speaking, if a bit of plaque is going to break off and block an artery, it's going to do it when your heart rate spikes sharply, not when it's coming down. I also heard it was the activity combined with overheating from his hot tub. Or no, it was that he actually passed out first and then drowned. No, wait, it was everyone's favorite culprit, drugs. And the reality is, no one knows how he died. A martial arts star known for his extreme physical fitness gets rushed to the hospital with what they said was swelling in the brain. But I've also heard he died of an allergic reaction to a headache medication, or water toxicity due to the liquid diet he was on. Heck, I even heard he died because he ate hashish, which is a concentrated form of marijuana that has been linked to 0 deaths. Or 1, I suppose, if you believe it killed this guy. What we do know about the condition is that it often causes a sense of dread before setting in. Full-blown panic attacks are seen in roughly 50% of cases. And before you comment about how panic attacks can't kill you, let me ask you this. How do you know? How do you know a heart attack isn't just a panic attack that kills you? Their symptoms are often the same. Maybe an aneurysm is what happens when a panic raises your blood pressure so high it compromises the lining of the blood vessels in your brain. Remember that pop star from like 15 years back? He died because his doctor wouldn't say no to him and kept giving him drugs. And then the doctor got in trouble. But what were the drugs he was taking? It was something to help him sleep because he suffered from terrible fits of anxiety. So, did the drugs really kill him? This is the hardest pill to swallow. This is the reason not just the medical community, but the world at large has agreed to this cooperative lie. Your anxiety is right. You can just die for no reason. It's not a conspiracy. It's not something us doctors cooked up to control the masses. Everyone knows it on some level. We all know life is fragile and random. And we all know that those sudden bouts of dizziness and tightness in the chest and feelings of dread can't just be benign. They're warning us of something biological that we don't yet understand. Why, in the name of God, would we evolve to experience panic for no reason? But there is a reason: chronic anxiety. Do you really believe that? Do you really believe that the fix evolution gave us to dealing with stress over long periods is to imitate a heart attack instead of, I don't know, maybe making us better at handling stress? But my doctor said. Exactly. Your doctor said. And I'm here to tell you that your doctor is either wrong or lying to you. It's not out of malicious intent. It's to help people live their lives normally without a constant fear looming over them while we research this issue and try to understand it better and hopefully find a treatment for it. I was one of the doctors that was wrong. I believed the lie myself. Or I pushed the truth down somewhere inside me, choosing not to fully understand what the pathologist had tried to teach me in medical school. This has been mostly an essay so far, so let me try my hand at a bit of narrative to show you exactly what broke the spell for me. What woke me up from the illusion, so to speak. Abby was a 26-year-old female. She was admitted to my hospital's emergency department at 1:30 a.m., reporting shortness of breath, chills, shaking, and tachycardia. Since any symptoms that can be heart-related are assumed to be so until proven otherwise, she was sent back to me right away. Her heart rate was 128. Not great for sitting down, but to be honest, that's roughly what you'd experience on a light jog. Blood pressure was 145/90. Not great, but working in an ER, I'd seen much worse on people who walked out the next day. So tell me what you do for work, I said, as I applied the electrodes for an EKG to her skin. She hadn't requested a female doctor and was perfectly comfortable being shirtless with me. She just wanted to find out what was wrong with her. I'm a paralegal, she said quickly between breaths. I hear that's hard work. Is that true? It may seem weird to have a casual conversation with someone in the throes of a panic attack, But casual conversation and focusing on simple, familiar topics can help ease people through them. Also, though I've never read this in the medical literature, I believe talking can help regulate their breathing and return their CO2 levels back to normal. It can be, but I like it, she laughed. Probably the cognitive dissonance of making a positive statement while feeling so terrible. It was good to release a little tension. I smiled at her and applied the last pad. I turned on the machine and it began spewing out a paper readout of spikes and troughs, telling me all about the state of Abby's heart. I said, "All right, I'm going to make sure your heart is looking... there, yeah. I don't see anything here that really concerns me. In fact, your heart is pretty strong. This is what I would expect to see in someone around 18 years old. Well, no, because their heart still has a little developing to go. But this is peak performance here. Are you an athlete?" "I like to run," she said. With each passing second, her breaths became farther apart. "That'll do it. I've always wanted to run a marathon, and I think I could physically, but it's the time commitment. I don't think I could fit the training into my schedule. I've never done anything like that. I just do a few miles every day or two." Her voice sounded tired now, almost drunk. That happens sometimes to people when they come down from the panic, and the adrenaline goes but leaves the endorphins to make the person feel high. I glanced at the pulse oximeter on her finger, about to stop the EKG, when I noticed her heart rate was now 60. That can't be right. I grabbed her wrist, and in the 15 seconds it took me to check her pulse, her heart rate had dropped to 40. I called for a nurse. I glanced at the readout from the EKG and saw that it had changed from one belonging to a young runner to one that would be a good candidate for a pacemaker. "Hey, Abby, did you take anything before arriving at the hospital for your anxiety? Your heart rate's a little low, so I'm going to give you a medication to..." I read HR30 on the pulse ox. Dear God. I don't remember if I said that out loud or thought it. I hope I only thought it, but I don't know if it would have changed anything. She already knew something was wrong. Her eyes widened and she reached for my hand. Her heart rate shot back to 60 briefly as she struggled to keep her head up before falling back onto the examination table. The paper continued to print from the EKG, the spikes and troughs cutting sharply to a flat line that would stretch on forever if I didn't turn the machine off. I realized I was clutching her hand in mine. I let it go and it hung off the end of the table, limp, dead. I did what I had to do. I literally had no other choice. This whole situation started when we were dispatched to a welfare check of an elderly woman. It was called in by one of her friends. She claimed she hadn't seen or heard from her in a few days. She stated the woman lived alone and had no family to check on her, and she wanted to be sure she was in good health. My partner and I responded just like we did to any call. A few jokes on the way to the scene to ease any tension that may be headed our way. "Maybe you can keep her company. Lord knows that you need someone in your life," my partner said with a slight laugh. "Yeah, dealing with you every day can lead to depression. It would be nice to have someone to complain to." When we arrived to the house, it didn't look run down. The lawn was well maintained. The porch light worked. It actually seemed kind of cozy, reminded me of my grandmother's house. We approached the door and gave an easy knock. "Hello, this is the police. If anyone is home, can you please answer the door? Just conducting a welfare check." No response, so I knocked again. "Ma'am, this is the police. We received a call. Just want to make sure you're doing okay." I was just about to contact dispatch when the door slowly opened. Peering from around the corner was an elderly woman. Ma'am, are you the owner of the house? Yes, I sure am, she said with a sweet smile. We were dispatched to perform a welfare check on you. Your friend said she hasn't heard from you in a while and just wanted to make sure you were safe. Oh, yes, dear, I'm fine. Just couldn't figure out this damn phone, so I haven't been able to get in touch with anyone. Oh, I see. What's wrong with the phone? Maybe I can help, I said with my hand out. Well, it's new, and I just can't seem to work it like my old one. It's a bit chilly out. Can you boys please come in so we can all warm up? I'll grab my phone from the kitchen. It was a warm night, so I thought it was a bit strange. I shot a quick look at my partner, but he just shrugged. I motioned to my partner to enter the house. I just wanted to lend a helping hand. When we entered, there was a strong scent. I couldn't put my finger on it. A candle, I thought. I wasn't sure. We made our way to the kitchen, and just as we passed the threshold, we heard what sounded like a bell. It was coming from upstairs. I know my partner heard it too, because when I looked at him, he stopped dead in his tracks. We heard it at the same time. Not sure what it was, and believing the woman to be alone, I asked what the noise was.
What noise, dear? Here is this pain in my neck phone.
She held it out, waiting for me to take it. Just before I grabbed it, she pulled it back. Would you gentlemen like something to eat or drink? No, thank you, ma'am. I'll just help you with the phone and we'll be on our way. It's so lonely here, though. Please stay. Footsteps. Above us. Running. I looked at the woman. Ma'am, are you here alone? Well, we are never really alone, are we? I looked at my partner, and he had already taken out his firearm. Without any more hesitation, I withdrew mine. Who else? Before I could finish, the elderly woman took off in a sprint. She ran straight out of the kitchen to the next room. I took off running after her. At that moment, there was a scream from upstairs, a cry for help. Go after her! You find out what the hell is going on! My partner yelled as he sprinted for the staircase. I walked into the living room to find the woman sitting on the couch, facing away from me. I held my gun to her. Don't move. I need you to tell me what is happening. We've just been so desperate for some company, she said, still facing away from me. I could hear yelling coming from upstairs. Muffled, but I was able to make out just enough. Police! Don't fucking move! You should check on your friend, dear. I slowly began to back away. I had my gun drawn on the old woman still. I yelled up without taking my eyes off of her. Partner, you good? No, he isn't, the old woman said slowly. Gunshots rang out. Not from my gun, from upstairs. A flurry of them. I ran up the stairs. My partner needed me. We needed to get the fuck out. Just as I reached the top, I saw him. He was fine. Not a scratch on him. Not a worried look on his face. Gun in his holster. What the hell happened? You good? I'm good, brother. Shadows playing tricks on me is all. Let's get out of here and call this in. He didn't seem right. There were gunshots. I heard his yelling. Shadows. He was blaming him discharging his firearm on shadows. When we returned downstairs, the woman was nowhere to be found. We searched the entire property right after we called it in. Our supervisors arrived a few minutes later. They told us we needed to make statements, give our account of what happened. We would have to return to the precinct.
They separated us when we got there. All procedure. They needed to make sure our stories matched up.
I said exactly what happened. From the call we received from dispatch to the old woman needing help with her phone, I didn't leave out any details. After telling my side of the story, I wanted to check on my partner. I walked into the lobby, and he was nowhere to be found. I saw my supervisor reviewing some paperwork, so I went over and asked, "Hey boss, any idea where he went?" "Yeah, said his Bodycam fell off in the chaos. We need the footage, so I sent him and another officer back to the scene to get it." No, that wasn't right. I saw it on him. It was on his chest when I went to check on him. Something was wrong. I hopped in my personal car and floored it. My tires scraped against the curb as I pulled up to the house. I saw the sector car they came in. They were already inside. I took out my gun and headed to the front door. Porch lights off. Something ominous hung over the house. The door was slightly ajar, so I pushed it open the rest of the way. Before I could make any sort of announcement, I heard it again. A bell. "I can always count on you to have my back," I heard my partner's voice. "Everything okay? Where are you guys?" "It's just me, buddy. Come upstairs." My instincts took over. I knew I had to clear out downstairs before I made any motion towards the staircase. I went room by room, clearing it the best I could. I stepped deeper into the hallway, gun raised, and that was when I saw him. The officer that accompanied my partner, or what was left of him. He was slumped against the baseboard like he'd collapsed mid-run. His legs were twisted underneath him, one shoe missing. His fingers curled into the carpet like he'd tried to dig himself forward. His eyes were open, wide, unblinking, staring at something that wasn't here anymore. His throat. Jesus. I dropped to a knee beside him before my brain caught up with what I was seeing. Training took over. I began to check for a pulse. My fingers brushed his neck. Cold. So cold. And then, a whisper, right against my ear, close enough that I felt the warmth of breath that was not mine. "Don't look at him. Look at me." The voice wrong. My partner's cadence layered with something deeper, something inhuman. I spun around so fast I almost slipped on blood. Gun raised, finger tight on the trigger. Nobody. Empty hallway. No movement. Just my own heartbeat punching through my ribs. For half a second, I let myself breathe. Footsteps. Pounding. Upstairs. Coming down the stairwell in a dead sprint. Not one pair, more, like multiple people rushing at once. I stepped back, gun up again, and then he hit me. My partner came out of the shadows at the bottom of the staircase, moving faster than any person I'd ever seen. His hand clamped around my throat before I could even shout. One arm, just one, lifting me off the ground like I weighed nothing. His eyes weren't his. They were wrong, dilated, unfocused, black in the middle like something was staring through him. I clawed at his wrist, feet kicking against the air, spots filling my vision as he leaned in too close, growls vibrating with something that wasn't human. Then he threw me. My body tore through the doorway and slammed across the kitchen floor, my shoulder cracking against a cabinet hard enough to knock the wind from my lungs. I gasped, choked, tried to get to my knees. His shadow spilled across the kitchen tiles before he did. Slow steps, heavy, not rushed like before. Deliberate, like each one was being chosen for him. I tried to steady the barrel of my gun, but my shoulder screamed and the sights bobbed with every shaky breath. I pressed myself against the cabinet, trying to force air back into my lungs. He entered the kitchen. Not bruised, not limping, not even breathing hard. Just watching me. But something flickered behind his eyes, a twitch, small, fast, like someone pulling on a string inside him. "Stay back," I said, raising the gun a little higher. He didn't stop. His lips moved like he was trying to form a word and couldn't. His jaw clenched, then unclenched, like two different instincts were fighting for control. Another step. "Don't do this," I said, voice cracking. "Whatever's happening, stop." His head jerked once, hard, like he'd been yanked. And for a split second, a single, terrible moment, I saw him. My partner. Not the thing using him, not the wrongness in his posture. Him. His eyes widened, panic slicing through the blank stare. His chest hitched like he was trying to suck in a breath. His hand twitched sharply at his side. He looked at me. Really looked at me. "Please," he choked, voice trembling like he was speaking through a mouth that wasn't his. I can't stop it." His fingers clawed at his own throat, like he was trying to tear something off from the inside. "Shoot," he gasped, panic exploding in his expression. "Shoot me, now!" Then his face collapsed into stillness. His arm dropped back to his side, his posture straightened, and when he looked up again, my partner was gone. The thing behind his eyes wasn't hiding anymore. He stepped forward, slow and confident, like the plea had never happened. A cold pressure flooded the room, like the air thickened around me. He lifted his hand, not to strike, not to grab, but to offer it, palm open, as if inviting me to join him. My fingers tightened on the trigger. "I'm sorry," I said, barely audible. Nothing human answered. He lunged, and I fired. I don't remember hitting the floor afterward, or the way my hands wouldn't stop shaking, or the high-pitched ringing in my ears that made everything sound underwater. What I do remember is screaming for backup. I remember forcing myself out of that house, stumbling, coughing, blood on my uniform that wasn't mine, grabbing my radio with fingers that barely worked. "Officer down, shots fired. I shot my partner." My voice cracked. "Send everyone." The rest comes in pieces. Red and blue lights flooding the lawn, boots pounding up the steps, my supervisor shouting my name, someone taking my gun out of my hand before I even realized I was still holding it, hands on my shoulders, voices asking if I was hit, if I could hear them, if I needed EMS. I couldn't answer any of them. I just kept staring at the open front door, at the dark inside, at what I knew was lying on that kitchen floor. When we got back to the precinct, I was brought into an interrogation room. Everyone was there. Lieutenant, sergeant, captain. Everyone. They began to question me about the night. They wanted a rundown of everything that took place. From the moment we got the call to the moment backup arrived after I shot my partner. I once again left nothing out. Old woman, the bell, footsteps, my partner and I separating, the return to the house, the other dead officer, the struggle with my partner, the gunshot. From their perspective, I sounded crazy, I'm sure of it. The Bodycam footage would be my only saving grace. "We have the footage from your initial call. Would you like to see it?" I would. A laptop was brought in and set on the table. They began to play the footage. Everything was exactly how I said. We reached the point where my partner went upstairs. He begins to ascend the staircase. Slowly, calm. He reaches the top landing. He sweeps the hallway with his flashlight and begins to approach an open bedroom door. As soon as he steps foot in that bedroom, something happened. He shouted, "Police, don't fucking move!" The room was empty. There was no one else in the frame, but there was my partner. Gun drawn, aiming down the sights, giving commands. "Partner, you good?" I heard my voice, faint, coming from downstairs. My partner screamed. The shadows in the room began to shift, but still no one else was present. Shots were fired, and my partner fell to the ground. His bodycam fell to the floor. My partner was seen in the corner of the frame, frantically trying to regain his composure, and then suddenly he sat up straight. He grabbed his camera, stood up, and exited the room. Our conversation about the shadows playing tricks on him can be heard in the last few seconds of the footage. The laptop was closed, and the silence in the room was deafening. I was told to go home and that the investigation would continue over the course of the next few days. I'm home now, writing this because I don't know what else to do. And every time I blink, I see his face, not the thing wearing him, but the moment he came back, the moment he begged me. I keep telling myself I saved him. The shadows on my bedroom wall keep getting longer, and I swear they're waiting for me to turn off the light. I'm not sure how this investigation will end, but I know one thing for certain. Whatever happened in that house, whatever was in that house, it's not gone. It's waiting.